Hello, dear friends. This is your personal English coach Divyam here, and today we're going to deal with fiction unit number 1. This is called Two Gentlemen of Verona. This is written by A.J.Connor. So let's begin. As we drove through the foothills of the Alps, two small boys stopped us on the outskirts of Verona. So here we can assume that there is more than one person traveling through the foothills of the Alps, and there are two small boys who are stopping them, and this situation happens at the outskirts of Verona. What is Verona? It is a city in Italy. Romeo and Juliet are believed to have lived there. So there is a very famous love story of Romeo and Juliet, and they are believed to have lived here. They were selling wild strawberries. Don't buy, warned Luigi, our cautious driver. You will get fruit much better in Verona. Besides, these boys. So, now we can assume that there is the author, there is a driver, and driver is cautioning the author not to buy the strawberries which the two boys seem to be selling. He shrugged his shoulders to convey his disapproval of their shabby appearance. So, because the boys were not really nicely dressed, the driver is asking the author not to buy anything from them. So there is a pic given of those boys where you can see that they are really shabbily dressed. They might not be the same boys, this is just for representation. One boy had worn jersey and cut off khaki pants, the other a shortened army tunic gathered in loose folds about his skinny frame. Yet, gazing at the two little figures with their brown skins, tangled hair, and dark earnest eyes, we felt ourselves strangely attracted. So the author and the driver, by looking at the boys initially, they did not want to buy the strawberries because of their looks. But on careful observation, they felt a strange attraction towards them. My companion spoke to the boys, discovered that they were brothers. So the driver had some kind of conversation, because we know that the drivers are really people of wisdom. They meet thousands of people throughout the day. So the driver might have talked to them, and while talking, he found out that the two little guys were brothers. Nicola, the elder, was 13-year-old. Jacopo, who barely came up to the door handle of the car, was nearly 12. So Jacopo stood away from the handle of the car, and Nicola might have approached nearer to the car. So Jacopo was 12 years old and Nicola was 13 years old. We bought their biggest basket, then set off toward town. So initially they did not buy anything, looking at their appearances, but gradually talking to them and gradually getting to know them, they were attracted, and finally they bought the biggest basket of the strawberries, and then they went towards the town. Next morning came out of our hotel. We saw our friends bent over shoe shine boxes beside the fountain in public square, doing a brisk business. So we can say that the author and the driver, they came out of the hotel. They might be staying in a hotel. Now they came out of the hotel and they saw their friends. Which friends? They are referring to the kids here. So these kids bent over shoe shine boxes beside the fountain in public square. So these boys were sitting in a public square and they were shining shoes. Doing a brisk business means doing a quick business, the business that can earn them good money and quick money. So they observed these kids doing the business. We watched for a few moments, and then trade slackened. As trade slackened, we went over. They greeted us with friendly faces. So when the crowd was less, the two guys, the author and the driver, went to those kids. And the kids recalled, and they knew that these are the same guys who bought strawberries from us, And so they gave a big smile. I thought you picked fruit for a living, I said. So the author told the boy that he assumed that the boy sold fruits, sold strawberries, and sold some other fruits for a living. We do many things, sir, Nicola answered seriously. He glanced at us hopefully. Often we show visitors through the town to Juliet's tomb and other places of interest. So the boy said, not only do we sell fruits, we also shine shoes, we also are a tour guide to many people. So one of the places that we help people to see is the Juliet's tomb. And whichever places that interest people, we help them visit and tell about it to the tourists. So there are a lot of things we do. It's not just shoe shining. All right, I smiled. You take us along. As we made the rounds, my interest was again provoked by their remarkable demeanor. They were childish enough and in many ways quite artless. Jacopo was lively and squirrel. Like a squirrel, Nicola's smile was steady and engaging. Yet in both these boyish faces there was a seriousness which was far beyond their years. Now, the author and the driver, they both agreed to visit Juliet's tomb. So while they were walking with those boys, their interest was widened. Why so? Because of the demeanor. Demeanor means appearance and behavior. They were young, no doubt. How mature can you expect kids of 12 and 13 years old? But these kids looked pretty active, pretty dynamic, and according to the author, they were also artless, meaning innocent. Jacopo was lively as a squirrel, so he was moving, he was constantly making some tactics and some nuisances. So that's why he's being compared to a squirrel, as we already know that he is very young. Nicola's smile was steady and engaging. So here we see that there is a lot of innocence, childishness, but somehow they're trying to make a living by doing a lot of stuff in life. Yet in both these boyish faces, there was a seriousness. So, as the author noticed, there was something about those boys. There was something about those little kids as to why they were working so hard to make a living. In the week which followed, we saw them frequently, for they proved extremely useful to us. If we wanted a pack of American cigarettes, or seats for the opera, or the name of a good restaurant, Nicola and Jacopo could be relied upon to satisfy our needs. So now the author and the driver, both of them decided to hire them for doing different stuff. Now the boys did it. There is a huge reason which is in the climax of the chapter as to why the boys were so serious about taking up and doing everything earnestly and honestly. So the author and the driver claimed that these guys were pretty useful because whatever we told them to do, they did it with the smiling faces. What struck one most was their willingness to work. During these summer days, under the hot sun, they shined shoes, sold fruit, hogged newspapers, conducted tourists round the town, and ran errands. Errands is nothing but the daily work that the author and the driver might be having. So, something that amazed them is their willingness to work, their inclination to work. Whatever was told to them, they did it with quite a lot of honesty and dedication. One night we came upon them in windy and deserted square, resting on the stone pavement beneath the lights. So, a couple of days passed, and the author and the driver did use these kids for the daily work, for the daily course, and now they stumbled upon a place in the town where these two kids were resting on the stone pavement beneath the lights. And why were they resting? So the reason is mentioned. Nicola sat upright, tired. A bundle of unsold newspaper lay at his feet. Jacopo, his head resting upon his brother's shoulder, was asleep. It was nearly midnight. So these two kids were sitting somewhere and they seemed extremely tired. And what the author and the driver saw was a bundle of unsold newspaper which was lying at one of the boys' feet. Why are you out so late, Nicola? Waiting for the last bus from Padua. We shall sell all our papers when it comes in. So here, the author is pretty inquisitive as to why these kids are here, and he asks them. So Nicola says that they are waiting for the last bus, and as soon as the bus arrives, we are going to sell these papers to the people. Must you work so hard? You both look rather tired. So the author is a little concerned because one of them was already asleep. So he says, why are you working so hard? Don't you want to take some rest? We're not complaining, sir, which means they're happy with whatever they are doing. They are tired, but they're happy to do it. They have no complaints with life. But next morning, when I went over to the fountain to have my shoes shined, I said, Nicola, the way you and Jacopo work, you must earn quite a bit. You spend nothing on clothes. You eat little enough. When I see you have a meal, it's usually black bread and figs. Tell me, what do you do with your money? So now the author already observed these two kids working day and night in and out and making a lot of money. So there was a brisk business that they used to take up, these two little kids. And the author thought about it, and the author asked these two kids as to what they did with the money. There was a lot of money coming in, but what he observed is they didn't eat in expensive restaurants, they didn't really buy expensive clothes. So where did the money go? He colored deeply under his sunburn, then grew pale. He looked to the ground. So this statement is deep. The boys do not want to tell the author the secret. The boys do not want to let him know where the money went. He colored deeply under his sunburn, then grew pale. So he looked a little bit sad. He looked a little bit unhappy about not revealing the real fact, not revealing the real reason as to why he did not buy new clothes or did not go to the expensive restaurant. And then he started looking down. You must be saving up to emigrate to America, I suggest. He looked at me sideways, spoke with an effort. So somehow these kids wanted to avoid telling the author as to why they didn't spend nicely and where the money went. So the author suggested them to emigrate to America, so to go to America and settle down. So the boys tried to avoid it. He looked sideways here and there, and he took a little bit of energy to speak, and he said, we should greatly like to go to the States, but here at present we have other plans. So the boys, they want to hide some fact. He said that obviously who would not want to go to America and settle down, but there are some other priorities that we had to look into. So we're not going anywhere. We have some great plans here. What plans? He smiled uncomfortably. Just plans, sir, he answered in a low voice. So we can imagine little kids, when we suggest them something and when they hide something, they really are, not good at hiding because there's a lot of innocence in them at this age. So in a very low voice, he said, we have some plans, sir. We cannot go anywhere. We're happy with whatever we're doing. We have no complaints whatsoever with life. And we are going to do what we are going to do right now until something happens. Now that something is going to be revealed in the rest half of the chapter. Well, I said, we're leaving on Monday. Is there anything I can do for you before we go? So the author does not want to knock them constantly and know the secret. The author respects the boy's secret, and he offers. He says, "We're leaving on Monday. Is there anything I could do for you?" Nicola shook his head. But suddenly Jacopo said, "Sir," he burst out, "every Sunday we make a visit to the country, to Poletta, 30 kilometers from here. Usually we hire bicycles, but tomorrow, since you are so kind, you might send us in your car." So, Jacopo, he burst when he was offered. He said, "As you're already offering us, why don't you drop us to Poletta? Because usually it's 30 kilometers from here, and we borrow bicycles to reach there. But as you're offering, why don't you drop us there?" I had already told Luigi he might have the Sunday off. However, I answered, "I'll drive you out myself." So, because the author liked these boys and because he wanted to give them something, he says that I will drop you there myself because I love you kids, and although I do not have my driver, I have given him a holiday on Sunday, but no problem, I will drive you till there. There was a pause. Nicola was glaring at his young brother in vexation. "We could not think of troubling you, sir." So Nicola was not really happy about what Jacopo said, and vexation is like when you're really frustrated, when you reach your threshold of maybe anger or sadness, you're really vexed out. So Nicola was not really happy about what Jacopo said, and he told the author that he could not really trouble him. The author says, "It won't be any trouble." So he said, "It's all fine, don't worry about it, I will drop you." He bit his lip. Then in rather put out tone, he said, "Very well." Put out means offended. The following afternoon, we drove to a tiny village set high upon the hillside. I imagined that our destination would be some humble dwelling, but directed by Jacopo, we drew up at a large red-roofed villa surrounded by a high stone wall. I could scarcely believe my eyes, and before I could recover breath, my two passengers had leapt from the car. So, the author had imagined the place where the boys wanted to reach as something grand or something fancy, but these boys really wanted to go to this village kind of place, which doesn't really seem to be convincing. And as soon as the car stopped, the boys, they leapt out. They instantly got out of the car and went somewhere. The author did not really think about it, but as he was trying to converse with them, before he was trying to converse with the boys, he saw that the boys immediately got out of the car and went somewhere. "We shall not be long, sir, perhaps only an hour. Maybe you'd like to go to the cafe in the village for a drink?" They disappeared beyond the corner of the wall. So now the boys, as we know, they do not want to reveal what they're up to. So they tell the author that, "Why don't you go to a place and have a drink somewhere and kill time while we're back, while we do our business, while we do what we want to do in here. You can go out somewhere, you can have a drink, spend time somewhere and come back in an hour." After a few minutes, I followed. I found a grilled side entrance and determinedly rang the bell. So the author, did he go somewhere? No, he didn't. He waited for the boys to disappear. But he also remembered where they went, and so he followed them. A pleasant-looking woman with steel-rimmed spectacles appeared. I blinked as I saw that she was dressed in the white uniform of a trained nurse. So the author very confidently rang the bell, and there's this lady who looked like a nurse and steel-rimmed spectacles, and she really blinked, and she was a nurse, as I already said. So the author said, "I just brought two small boys here." "Ah, yes." Her face lit up. She opened the door to admit me. "Nicola and Jacopo, I will take you up." So the nurse is trying to take the author to the place where the boy had gone. She led me through a cool tile vestibule into the hospital, for hospital the villa had become. At the door of the little cubicle the nurse paused, put her finger to her lips, and with a smile bade me look through the glass partition. So, in this stanza, we see that the villa had turned into a hospital, and the nurse, he pointed out at a glass window, and she showed something to the author through the glass window. So, here it's written, put her finger to her lips and with a smile. So why she put her finger to her lips? This indicates that the nurse wanted the author to keep quiet and just observe something that was going on the other side of the vestibule. So that's why she smiled and bade me look. Bade is a past tense of bid, and she bade me look through the glass partition. Two boys were seated at the bedside of a girl about 20, who, propped up on pillows, wearing a pretty lace jacket, was listening to their chatter. Her eyes, soft and tender, one who could see at a glance her resemblance to her brother's. A vase of wildflowers stood on her table, besides a dish of fruit and several books. So now the author saw that these boys have visited a girl who was in her 20s, and she was very pretty. She was wearing a lace jacket and was listening to their chatter. Their chatter. Whose chatter? The boys' chatter. She was listening to the chatter, and she was very beautiful. Her eyes were soft and tender, and she resembled her brothers. So somehow she was linked to those two little kids, and there were flowers and there were books on the table. So it seemed as if she was admitted here, and the boys were visiting her. Won't you go in? The nurse murmured. Lucia will be pleased to see you. So now we know that the girl is named as Lucia. I shook my head and turned away. I felt I could not bear to intrude upon this happy family party. But at the foot of the staircase, I drew up and begged her to tell me all she knew about these boys. So, the author, as we can see, is a very, we can say, meticulous person. Meticulous meaning careful. He is very careful about somebody else's privacy. He says, well, I don't want to disturb them. Let the happy family be happy. Let them chatter. Let them talk. I don't really want to disturb them. I don't really want to interrupt. But please tell me, who is that girl? And please tell me if she knew these boys. How are they related? Please tell me. She was eager to do so. They were, she explained, quite alone in the world, except for this sister, Lucia. Their father, a widower, a well-known singer, had been killed in early part of the war. Shortly afterward, a bomb had destroyed their home and thrown the three children into the street. They had always known a comfortable and cultured life. Lucia had herself been training as a singer, and they had suffered horribly from near starvation and exposure to cold winter. So the cards have been flipped, the secret is revealed, and the lady who looked like a nurse, she is really telling the secret. She says, because she was eager to tell the secret, she explains everything to the author. She says, now these guys are all alone. What happened was, their father, a widower. So a lady is known as a widow. A lady who loses the husband, whose husband died, is called a widow. But a guy who loses his wife is known as a widower. So the father, a widower. So here we can say that the mother of the kids has already died before. So there was this father who was a very famous singer, and he was killed in the early part of the war. So we can say that there was some sort of war going on, and the father had been killed, and shortly afterward there was a bomb explosion in the house, and because of the explosion the kids were thrown out in the street. It was so powerful. and they had always known a comfortable life, which means they lived a very rich life. They had everything they needed in their house, but because of this bomb explosion, now they were torn apart. This Lucia, because her father was also a singer, she was training to be a singer in the future, but they suffered so much. They did not have food to eat, they did not have anything to live by, so they went into the starvation mode and they were exposed to this cold winter. For months they had barely kept themselves alive in the short of shelter they built with their own hands amidst the rubble. So imagine a building being collapsed. So what remains is rubble, right? So now we know that the bomb had torn apart the house, had shattered the family. They had nothing to live with. So what the kids and the girl did is they made a little bit of a shelter in their own house, which was already torn apart, and they stayed there. Then for 3 years, the German ruled the city. So now we know that the German had thrown a bomb. Now they were ruling the city. The boys grew to hate the Germans. When the resistance movement began secretly to form, they were among the first to join. So these kids, they really started hating the Germans because the Germans exploded their homes. But the war was over. We had peace at last. They came back to their beloved sister and they found her suffering from tuberculosis of the spine. So here we see that there was some kind of revolution going on, and these boys, they joined the movement first because they didn't really like the Germans, because they destroyed everything, and because they joined the movement, they were a little bit away from her sister, who managed to live in a rubble. But because they had nothing to live with, the sister suffered so much that she developed a disease called tuberculosis of spine. She paused and took a quick breath. So when you're trying to tell someone a sad story, you really get into their frame and you feel sad about it. And so after you narrate the story, you might have to take a long deep breath to make yourself comfortable, to make yourself get back into the present. So she pauses and takes a quick breath. Did they give up? I did not have answer to that question. They brought her here, persuaded us to take her into the hospital. In the 12 months she has been our patient, she has made a good progress. There is every hope that one day she will walk and sing again. So the nurse tells the author that the boys never gave up. And I do not have to answer that question because the author was already seeing the boys with the girl who was in her 20s. So we can already see that they had not given up. They brought her here, persuaded us to take her into the hospital. In the 12 months she has been our patient. She has made good progress. So we can assume that the lady was taking care of the girl Lucia, who was bedridden, and she had all hopes to be back to life because of something. We'll see what is that. Of course, everything is so difficult now, but food so scarce and dear, we could not keep going unless we charged a fee. But every week, Lucia's brothers have made their payment. She added simply, I do not know what they do. I do not ask. Work is scarce in Verona, but whatever it is, I know they do it well. So from this paragraph, we know that the hospital, the villa turned into hospital, they need money to operate this girl, Lucia. Where did the money come from? It came from the two boys who worked relentlessly to earn money for their sister. And so now we know why the boys did everything honestly to gain some money. Now we know the boys very well. Now we also know that the author and the driver, why they were happy with those boys, because work was secondary. The primary thing was the love they had for their suffering sister. They wanted the sister Lucia to come back to life by any means. They were aware that the money could only bring Lucia back. Money was the only factor that could help their sister, so they worked day and night, in and out. And that's why, if you remember the previous line where the author is asking them if they needed rest, they said, "We have no complaints." So that meant they had no complaints because they wanted their sister to be back on her legs and sing. So they were really ready to do anything. So it was all about love for their sister. Yes, I agree. They couldn't do it better. I waited outside until the boys rejoined me, then drove them back to the city. They sat beside me, not speaking. For my part, I did not say a word. I knew they would prefer to feel that they had safely kept their secret. Yet their devotion had touched me deeply. War had not broken their spirit. Their selfless action brought a new nobility to human life, gave promise of a greater hope for human society. So the author, as I already said, is a meticulous person. He is very careful and judicious. He doesn't want to tell the boys that, hey, I know about you. I know about why you are earning money. No, he won't do that because he wants the boys to feel great about keeping the secret. He wants the boys to feel proud about themselves of what they do, because what they did was the best thing in the world. What they did was really honest, and they were giving hopes for the human society. They were giving hopes of humanity, that people know that humanity is still alive. Humanity is still not destroyed, because the boys worked relentlessly, and the author wanted them to work day in and day out, and they wanted them to continuously push and earn money so that the sister was back up and so that she could sing. So this is the author here, a little bit description. A.J. Connor was a doctor by training, and there's a little bit description. So dear friends, I personally loved this chapter. I hope you've understood it very well. I have recorded this on a mobile, unlike desktop. I usually do my sessions on desktop, but this time I decided to do it on mobile because I feel there's a lot of liberty to move the screen around and scroll the stuff here and there. Alright, having said that, I'm going to record a few more chapters. My aim is to complete the CBSE syllabus and make sure that you have all the videos, all the explanation you need in your house, in your hand, wherever and whenever you need. I want to help you get 100 out of 100 in English. So if you have any doubts, questions, suggestions, or improvements in my videos, please comment under my video, and you can request me any topic that you want, any topic that you don't understand, any topic in English. It might be out of your syllabus, it might be in your syllabus. I am here to help you. I am here to make sure that you master English, because English is a universal language. You need to master English. You need to be proficient in this world in English if you want to be a champion. So do not hesitate. Do comment and subscribe, more importantly, because if you subscribe, you'll get an update. You'll get a notification that Professor DC has uploaded another video. All right. Take care and have a nice day. Goodbye.